Okay. Welcome, world. We are here. We are here late, and I apologize. That is all me. All me. My fault. Parent-teacher
I just got
conferences.
on too. I'm flying solo parenting, so I had to get Will to bed.
Okay, well, maybe if I would have been earlier, Andy would have been late. But
Yeah.
at this point, you can blame him. I guess the both of us, because we were both. This was not going to happen until now. So I apologize for missing that deadline. But our parent-teacher conferences got done at 8:30. Took me 15 minutes to drive here. I like had to go to the bathroom, and I feel like that's what made me late. So, that's. I'm sorry, guys, and hopefully my voice holds up for this. I've got my 2 LaCroix here ready to go. Trent, I think you had quite the practice tonight with the Taekwondo.
Yes, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm. Andy's parenting. Trent's doing Taekwondo. I'm also doing Taekwondo, but doing it in parent-teacher conference is very inappropriate. Not a way that you want to really engage with other parents or with parents.
On the parent.
Yeah, well, some of them are right ready to go, but for a lot of them, they don't see the first hit coming, which is usually an advantage. No, I'm just kidding. It was a good parent-teacher conferences. It went well. It's just it kind of set me back a little bit, and it makes for a very long day, but it still feels. I feel very good out of it, and that's a very positive, good thing. So.
You need to start them all when they come to talk to you, and they start talking. You're like en español.
I do kind of. I definitely what I want to do is I want to give the parents something kind of silly to go home and tell their kids about. I found this really dumb YouTube video, and I show kind of a little clip of it to parents, and I say, ask your kid about this, because I want them to get I want them to get them talking about it, and I want it to be something where almost like the kids are embarrassed that I said that, but I want to start that dialogue, and yeah, I'm excited. I think that tomorrow a lot of kids are going to come to me and be like, "You showed my mom that video. Why?" And I'm going to be like, "I won. I've won. Senor Silent Uno." And then I'll say the kid's name, Cero. You got no points. I'm 1, you're 0.
Exactly. All right. What do we do? Wait.
So tonight's topic coming up here is going to be Essen. So is anybody in our chat here right now to say, I think Mur was here earlier, and I think he's still there right now. We got Mur, Trent, Andy. Has anybody actually been to Essen? Of anybody here or?
No, but I'm almost definitely going in a year or two.
Very cool. Very cool. I don't know if Mur has been, but I know that Dice Forge and Luxor are 2 pretty cool games. I know that Dice Forge is a really great game. Luxor is that new Queen game that got nominated. That sounds like games that I really like to try sometime, Mur. Those sound like cool ones to get going. All right, so guys, we do want to get this episode here getting going on the road. So right now I'm just kind of trying to finish this, talking the essentials on the live recording of my podcast.
And now they
guys,
see
I'm not able to
work
multitask.
we actually put into it.
I'm posting about this on the board game group, like one of those Facebook groups, hoping to just get this shouting out. Hopefully, maybe if anybody's just looking for something to kill some time here on a Thursday night, they'll enjoy a nice chat with some gamers that have played games a bit. Some of us here in the podcast community have actually played games for over 1,300 days in a row, probably now bordering close to 1,400. Tell me that figure, Mur. I'm sure he'll have it, unless the streak has been broken, in which case we're all going to start just crying uncontrollably, wailing. Tony's out there. Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
Is he getting killed by you in a game of 18xx right now online, Andy? Tony?
Oh, no, I am coming in dead last in 1817.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. You are doing the world a service.
Yeah, I'm doing weird things. Like starting a brand new company in the last 3 ORs of the game.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
And welcome Tim as well. Welcome to the chat. And I think that we might have seen Tim last week or a week before. And anyway, you guys chime in with stuff that you're looking forward to. And once we get to our topic, Essen, your comments and stuff on our reviews, what you have to say is important. You won't always hear about it right away. Sometimes you'll hear me steal credit for what you said or just try to work it in. But anyway, thank you for showing up to this chat and making the good, the bored, and the ugly a more wholesome and more representative podcast of even more perspectives than our own, which are already going to be very diverse. So here we go, guys. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm joined tonight by Andrew Dennison. Andy, how you doing?
Pretty good.
And Trent Ham. Hey, Trent.
Hey, how you doing?
Tonight has been, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm a little bit tired. I know that you are too, Trent. I know you had a really big Taekwondo practice with lots of physical activity. I just got done with parent-teacher conferences. Andy has been the Mr. Mom of the night. So we are all here to talk about games because this energizes us. This brings energy to us, as hopefully it does to you, this amazing hobby of tabletop board games. We do this in The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly by reviewing games, then by talking about a topic in the hobby, which tonight will be the Essen-tials. We're going to be talking about 2018 Essen and what it looks to offer in terms of new releases of games. We're talking about the board gaming convention that is in Essen, Germany, that is arguably the largest solely tabletop board game focused. When you exclude RPGs and the tangentially related things that are at Gen Con, Essen is definitely one of the largest single release places of all the new board games. It is largely a good place where people go to play games, play full games, and then purchase those games. We're going to be talking about games that we are looking forward to from the Essen preview list, which is on Board Game Geek. I went through. I have 29 titles that I'm going to mention. Some of them, all sorts of different levels of interest and reasons for mentioning. And then once we get done talking about our Essen section of this episode, we'll move on to hyping games, which, spoiler alert, I'm actually going to just consider my Essen hype like just basically the hype. So you might feel a little shortchanged by not having a hype for me, but it'll be because our topic is pretty much hyping a whole bunch of stuff. And I think that you'll get definitely some content hype-wise out of our topic. So I know that for you guys, it wasn't quite as many games that interested you. Essen's a bit of more of the midweight Euros, as Andy likes to call the no man's zone of his gaming.
Well, I don't know. It's mostly Euros though, and I don't know, light to. There's actually a pretty good range on the list from light to heavy this year. There was actually more heavy than I think there might have been last year.
There's quite a few heavy things, man. Yeah. I mean, like you're talking like Splotter Spelling, one of the most popular companies for heavy gamers, is absolutely a part of Essen. At least from the preview that I was reading. So I mean, yeah, it runs the gamut, right? But you're definitely going to find that at its core, it's going to be a lot of Euro games. I mean, This is where Euros originated from. The reason they're called Euros, people, it's in Europe.
You do occasionally get like one or two of the European 18XX like vendors sometimes go there to sell games.
18, too. Yes, and I'll talk about that more. But yeah, Lenny Orgler, Lenny is definitely participating in some capacity. Well, maybe we'll talk about that later. So, But first, guys, let's thanks to our sponsor, Game Surplus. Check them out at gamesurplus.com, where you will find many, especially in the wake of Essen. Carmen will get the games first. Many of the games, he will be the only one that ever gets them. But for sure, check Carmen, his offering at Game Surplus, the Essen Mule sort of service that he does. It's not technically called an Essen Mule service. It's basically what he does, though. He goes over there. He finds the smaller publishers. He finds connections. So check what Game Surplus is offering in the wake of Essen. It might not be the same this year that you come to expect, but definitely check them out at gamesurplus.com. If you like this podcast, please support them. That's at gamesurplus.com.
I actually tweeted out about Game Surplus because I saw just out of the blue he had copies of the war game Maria in. And like I have seen that like nowhere in the States until I saw him having it, and it was like $48, $47 or $48, which is way better than the BGG market prices.
It'd be about half of what they're wanting. So, yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, it's there. It's got to be there. Darn it, man. I mean, just in general, check out Carmen's stuff there. I can't remember what I was going to say. So moving on here, I wanted to do a shout out here. Give some airtime to our cardboard cohorts, Norm and Ryan, the Bridge City Board Gamers. I was their first guest of this new season of Cardboard in the Classroom. So you don't have to watch that episode. You already know me. But you know what? Their second guest was I'm going to say his name wrong, but it is Sen Moon Ling. I don't remember his name exactly, but it's the guy who designed was part of the design team that made Junk Art. So it's an educator in Canada who is also a board game designer and actually has published games, like really great games. Check out that stuff. I am looking forward to the chance I get to listen to it. I know that Norm is currently in the process of putting that episode together. They live recorded it last week. So check out our cardboard cohorts, the Bridge City Board Gamers, on iTunes as well as on YouTube. They are now live recording their episodes. So check those out. Come participate. Be a part of that community as well. It's people just like us, very passionate, and just really cool guys that are interesting to listen to. So check them out, Bridge City Board Gamers.
Have they ever done anything on Genius Games?
I can't answer that for 100% sure. Not that I can remember right off the top of my head, but maybe it just might be that I haven't seen it recently.
I just saw today that they had a Kickstarter starting for like some kind of like, I don't know if it was a race game or area control, but it's basically the periodic table of the elements.
Nice. Well, I know that Ryan teaches math, Norm teaches social studies. They need a science teacher on there, Andy. That will be you. You be their like cardboard. You be the cardboard in the classroom science guy.
Yeah, except if I had another podcast in there, I might as well get a divorce now.
That is Sen Foong Lim. Thank you so much, Mur. I struggled so much with the name that I was trying to say earlier. But yes, Andy, don't let that happen then. Stay together. But maybe you could be a guest on their show. Who knows?
Yeah,
this is what I'm all about, connecting people to other people that are awesome. And unfortunately, not everyone is awesome, but sometimes Andy's what you get. Sorry, Andy. Love you, dude.
Yeah, my wife says it all the time. No.
Not everyone can be awesome. Yes, that's just remember, Andy, not everyone can be great. It's okay. Oh, dude. Well, hey, Andy, why don't you did you want to guide us here to start this episode off here with your review, sir? Would you like to tell us about the experience that you are having with Trent and your presidential campaigns?
Yeah, so I've played this a few times now, but it's I don't remember who it was first. It was a war game publisher, but now it's GMT. 1960, The Making of a President, so about the Nixon and Kennedy election. We got to play this again with Trent, and we've been kind of doing like two-player games in the mornings of the week since I'm not teaching this year and he's self-employed. It's a good meetup time while our kids are out. But we played this again, and it's basically a redo on the Twilight Struggle system. So all card driven, you got events, you got points, you can do different things with them. It's a little more straightforward than Twilight Struggle, a little easier, which for me, normally I would prefer the heavier side of it. But actually, in this case, I think the mechanisms of that card driven war game and presidential elections actually makes a lot more intuitive sense than Twilight Struggle does. It's a little, and I'm not saying Twilight Struggle is bad, but it's a little bit more abstracted as to what that influence is actually doing. Whereas in 1960, The Making of a President, it's like clicks. Okay, I'm doing influence to gain electoral votes.
Yeah. There's not as many like different possibilities that you can do with everything.
Right. Like it just links super, super well. And then you do things and you can get influence on the issues. You can do advertising to try to do it. Then there's just sort of this big, electoral vote count at the end. I just think the game for a card-driven war game on the Twilight Struggle sort of system, this one makes just a whole lot of intuitive sense. Like it was really easy to kick in and start running with it and working with it. It's really cool. And so we played this again, had a really good time with it. I would seriously check it out if you're looking to try something with that sort of card-driven war game thing, but Twilight Struggle is maybe a little bit of an intimidation yet. I think 1960 is a good way to go. There's just lots of ways to sort of battle each other, to influence each other. What's really cool too is the way the events work, because you can't necessarily play all the events. To actually activate an event when your opponent plays one of your cards, you have to use these momentum tokens, and you only have so many of those. So you really have to ration. It's like, okay, do I use it on this event, or is he holding something back juicier? Because if you've got a card that has all good events for your opponent, one of the things you might do is try to throw those things out there and get them to bite on like one that won't hurt you as bad, and get rid of that. And so it adds a whole lot more dynamics to that. There's a debate phase where you have to debate on some issues, and that adds some influence here or there. But yeah, I just think as far as the games I've played, like Twilight Struggle, which right now was 13 Days, 1960, and Twilight Struggle itself, I think 1960 is the best combination of sort of the theme and mechanics out of all of those.
Whoa.
I really do. Now, not saying I wouldn't love to play Twilight Struggle, because the heavier aspect of it, I think, is still quite fun, and I enjoy playing that. But I think 1960 is like, that just syncs really well, man. Like, everything makes really intuitive sense in terms of an election. The only thing that throws me is my brain can't quite accept modern political boundaries as against 1960 ones. So, like, whenever I see California starting out as a Republican state, I'm like, wait, what?
It is so strange to see it. Yeah,
why are all the southern states voting for liberals? What the crap is going on here?
Yeah, the paradigm really flipped. It was largely that specific election that kind of did it too.
And now, if you really want to go, like, you know, if you've got certain families with different political beliefs and you want to make sure you don't talk to each other ever again, on BGG there is a Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton variant.
Great idea. And I think that the actual paradigm shift I was talking about when the Southerns flipped, I think it was later on that Nixon actually succeeded. I think this is when he tried but didn't quite get there. So maybe I should.
Later in the 60s when they started to flip and the civil rights movement got going and stuff.
Yep.
This is before that. So
yeah, it's
the South was still Democrat at the time mostly.
Yeah, no, it's a really good game. I really think, like, if I had to pick one of the three to buy, and that was the only one, I think legitimately I would probably go with 1960.
Well, Andy, this is a really monumental review for me, because a lot of times when I listen to your reviews, I think like yeah, that makes sense in Andy logic. Yes, that makes sense in Andy logic. Like, it's always like, okay, yes, that's an Andy thing. Yes, that's an Andy thing. I feel like you almost spoke directly to me with what you said about this one. I've actually owned this game back in its old Z-Man version. And then when I heard that the reprint was coming out, it wasn't getting played, and so I moved it along, hoping to, you know, make some space in my collection and expecting full well to get it at some point. And what you did here was you told me exactly what I needed to hear to lead me to believe that this is the perfect game for me to teach my father. He really is interested in Twilight Struggle and Versin das Volk, which is kind of a part of this whole thing. It's like the story within Germany. That's, you know, the one side versus another within Germany. So it's a more localized conflict, but it's still the same sort of ideas like Twilight Struggle, that sort of war of influence. But what you said here about how it's more concerted interests me and makes me feel like I could get this played easier with my dad and make him understand this easier than I could with any of the other options that he's expressed interest in. Yeah, and he has mentioned this one.
Everything makes real intuitive sense, I think. The other thing that's really cool in this that might be up your alley too, Joe, or other people's, is in Twilight Struggle, there's the dice rolling aspect where sometimes it's a 1 through 3 on that.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't care. The thing that's cool, though, is in 1960, it's like a bag draw. And so one of the things on the card you play is you get to add cubes to the bag. Usually, if you play a more powerful card on the map, you're adding less cubes to the bag. So you're actually affecting the level of randomness you will be experiencing. And so if you do something like play a lot of powerful cards in that last round and put like no cubes in the bag, then when you get that final like chance to flip states, like you can get cut off at the knees pretty bad.
Wow, that's such an interesting, like, the way that they've integrated that into where, like, just playing powerful cards for their operations points has a balancing, like, oh, well, you're also not getting those into the bag. Like, to me, that sounds so cool.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of things to think about. Each card is like, what state is this going to matter in the end of the game? Will I use it for a debate? Will I use it for the last election? What's the event? What's the ops points? What's the rest cubes? And
there's a lot to come into, but it's all still very much onto that one. Like, you have that one goal, electoral votes. Right. It's all tied to that.
And they're all out on the map. You can see them. I would love to see, what I would really love to see on this too is them to do an app version of this that would kind of keep a running total of electoral votes, just because I think, like, if you had someone that was super competitive, you could get to an AP situation where they just start counting all the votes so that every round, so that they can see where is the optimal place I can flip the vote. But other than that, I think it's great. It works really well.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here. I was the one that's played this with Andy a few times lately, and I've also played Twilight Struggle an insane amount on the app. And I will say that they are very distinct games. Yeah. I think that 1960 is a little lighter, but that's not saying that it's a light game. That's not what I'm saying. Don't get that mistaken here. No. I think it's a little more straightforward than Twilight Struggle at first glance, I think. Yeah. And I would way rather teach 1960 than teach Twilight Struggle to a new player. There's no question. But they are similar games, enough so that I felt like things I had learned from playing Twilight Struggle a lot ported over really well to 1960. So when I was playing it, I felt like I was using some of the, I don't want to say strategies, but decision-making processes a lot. And Andy got to witness my experience with Twilight Struggle, especially in the last game where I plowed him. But
oh god, that was bad. My last round right before the election was god awful.
Yeah, it was a lot of that for me, at least, was I was using decision-making processes I learned from playing Twilight Struggle. They're not the same game, but they're similar enough that you'll feel some back and forth. You'll feel things you learn in one will apply to the other at least somewhat.
I would agree with that. I think if Twilight Struggle is just a little too intimidating, like if you played 1960 for a bit and then went to Twilight Struggle, it would be like a really good stepping stone there.
That is awesome, dude. This to me sounds like the perfect like place that I think I would be most interested in exploring. So I'm sorry, Trent, were you gonna add in there?
I don't have too much to say.
Well, thanks, Andy. What a cool like. It's been a while since I've heard you specifically get really involved into a game, and I felt like, whoa, what are you saying? That sounds like stuff that is absolutely – it's like you were trying to sell it to me, Andy. So thank you, man. Thanks for thinking of me.
That's a good one, man. That's definitely when I played it. It was good. I really liked it.
Very cool. Well, Trent, your review is – I think the highlight of this review section, though, Andy, I did not expect that to be such a really cool little thing that I was really going to enjoy. But yeah, Trent, you got the highlight of this review section. So I'm going to save yours and go ahead and do my quick review here of a game that I discovered via an online system where I play a lot of games. This is yucata.de. That's spelled YUCATA.de. Find me on there. I think Joseph Salen won. If you want to locate me, contact me through the Good Board Ugly Guild or something, and we can get some games going. I'm currently playing several games with some listeners. Murr, man, we've got quite a few going. Me and Murr have got like a half dozen games. So the game that I am specifically reviewing right now is called Just for Fun. That's the number 4. So just number 4 fun, just for fun. And there is a just for fun regular, which is played with numbers, and then there's a just for fun colors. And I think that that these two games are perfect for learning online and learning, the rule sets are just impossible to screw up. That's why I think they're so good for learning online. I just read the rules and I was like, wow, that's all there is to it. Holy crap. And I was able to get started in games and already feel like I already am like puzzling around with kind of a lot of different possibilities. So how do you play just for fun? Well, it's really simple. There's this big deck of cards. You shuffle them, and they have numbers on them that are like 0 to, I think, about 19 or 20. I don't think it goes much higher than that. And there's several copies of some cards. And what you do is each person gets 4 cards. And then you play on a board that is, I think, like a 6x6. And your goal is to essentially play Connect 4. You want to get 4 in a row. However, the way that you actually play is by playing any combination of the 4 cards in your hand, adding them all up, and then putting a piece of your color on that specific piece on the board. If you ever place, think of this kind of like Twilight Struggle, actually. If you ever place a second piece, that now means that you have 2 more pieces than your opponent in any spot, you actually totally shut that place down so your opponent can no longer go there. So it's like you've totally claimed that spot for yourself. The board has many different ways it can be laid out. You can have it so that it's kind of in a balanced, the way the board is meant to be played in sort of like a classic way. And then there's a random way where just all the numbers are randomly listed. So essentially what you've got anytime that you want to play a card or any combination of cards, you'll have exactly 1 spot that'll play on the board because it's just every number's listed once. It results in some really interesting and deceptively simple yet strategic possibilities. Now, I'm not saying that this game is by any means a coup de grace of like strategy. It's got a lot of randomness. You don't choose your cards that you draw in this game, and so a lot of times you have like the ability to win, but you can't get the right cards to come up so you can play on the right spot, right? And that can be really frustrating. However, the possibility, just the statistical probability of what you might get in your hand, lower numbers are much easier to play because, if there's a 5, I could make that with a 5 with a single 5 card, or I could make it with a 1 and a 4, a 2 and a 3. There's a lot of different possibilities, whereas sometimes you'll get stuck where you want to get a 34, but getting that many cards that equal that exact number is really, really tough. I mean, you get a 17 and then a 14, and you're like, I really need something so I can finally play on this and actually win the game. So, I mean, there is deceptively simple strategy in this game, but ultimately you're still going to be I didn't get the right cards. And I think that for that reason, it makes it very, very, very well suited for an online system. I would highly recommend trying this. It was one of those where I just wanted to try a new game in this online system. I've been playing a lot of games on Yucata recently, and it was finally a very positive first game of something. So many times, when I'm learning a game for the first time, I'll start a game on Yucata, and then 2 months later, the game is still going, and I'm like, how do you score in this game again? I remember how to play because I've been playing for 2 months, but I don't remember the scoring, and especially I don't remember the corner cases and the rules. This is one of those really simple, easy-to-play games that I think, if it sounds at all interesting, go check it out. It's on Yucata. It's called Just for Fun. The colors version of the game is, I think, it's different. It doesn't involve math, so you've got that, but it does involve, I think, more strategy in terms of the way that you decide which places you're going to fight your battles because you have more cards in your hand, so more ability to really know if you can play in certain spots because there's there's an accumulation. There's sort of almost like a crescendo where the more cards of a color, the harder it is to play on a spot. And every spot just gets increasingly harder to play on. So it definitely has more of I think the better game is probably the colors game, but they're both going to be very similar. They're just, just for fun. It's to me, even if you hate it, it was so easy. Why not try it? So that's my thoughts. Have you guys ever seen or heard this one? I think it was originally published by Cosmos.
Nope, unfamiliar.
Nothing about it. No. But in Japan, the number 4 is associated with death.
Okay. So, you killed it, Andy. Great job. No, Andy, you killed it. You killed it. So now we can go on. That's, I think, what was sitting there hanging in the balance. Andy killed it. And now it's time for Trent to rebirth, to become the renaissance of this podcast and tell us all about his revisiting of a game that maybe your mind's changed about it, Trent. Maybe not. Maybe you just see it for something different than what you originally were looking for. I have no idea, but I am interested in this review.
All right, so I'm going to talk about The Mind again. I talked about The Mind about a month ago, and actually, I've gotten a weird amount of feedback on my review of The Mind on Twitter from various people.
Hey, they care about it, man. You know, like sometimes they've got a voice, sometimes.
Okay, so, all right, so I originally played The Mind with a group of people, 4 people. I played it, and it was one of those random events where you just happen to be playing this game, and it turned out 2 of the people I was playing with were people that had been trained as EMTs in the past, okay? This is my original play of it, so I need to go back from the beginning and explain this. Okay, so one of the things that EMTs are trained with is during their CPR training, they're trained to naturally do heart or chest compressions at a steady beat of 100 beats per minute. And they learn this by learning to use the song Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. And this is a very standard thing that EMTs learn and anyone that takes CPR training learn. And this song is supposed to go through your head and you do chest compressions at this rhythm. I bet if you're familiar with The Mind, you know where this is going. So when we were playing The Mind, and The Mind is a game where you have a hand of cards, and they have cards numbered 1 through 100, and they're dealt out of the stack. And so if you're playing with 4 people, everybody has their own hand. And your goal is for all players to play those cards in order. So if I have a 1, I'd want to play it first. And then if someone else has a 5, they might wait a little bit and look at everybody else and see whether or not they're going to play, and then they'd play the 5. The goal is it's a co-op for all of us to collectively play the cards in the right order. But we can't communicate with each other. So the first time I played this, the people that had CPR training naturally fell into using the rhythm of staying alive to do it. And they didn't even think about it. It was just natural for them. And as I watched them play, I naturally got the rhythm they were using too, because they were playing their cards just really fast, right in the rhythm with the card. Like when they'd be counting the beat, when they get to 24, they play 24 really fast. Mm-hmm. And if they're doing that, it's really easy to figure out their rhythm. It is so easy, you can't hardly miss it. Okay? So yes, exactly. Any good. I mean, if you think of the beats at the beginning and count along with them, it's really easy. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if all the players are doing that in their head, this game becomes, like I described it, it seemed like an activity to me rather than a game. Is that everybody was doing these beats in their head and playing the cards in order, and they just blew through it. It wasn't even a problem to beat this game.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that turns out that that's actually cheating. According to the rules of the game.
Yeah.
Except they don't tell you that, except on the page that you're not supposed to look at to know it's cheating.
Yes. So my first reaction was playing it with this group, and I felt like this game is like what is the deal? Why do people like this? So I discussed this with my wife and a few other people after my review, and some people on Twitter, and it was highly encouraged of me to try it again without doing it. I talked with my wife, and I got a copy of it on sale, and I picked it up again. I played it with my kids, and I played it with my wife, and I played it with Joe's wife, Caroline, and a few other people. And it turns out that if you intentionally, very carefully don't do any sort of beat counting in your head, it becomes a very different game, and I think it is definitely a game then. Okay? Yeah. Because I think at that point, it's not, you're not going along with the beat in your head. The way I described it to my wife is I said, it feels like this game is a game of subconsciously recognizing nonverbal cues. A lot of times I felt like I didn't even recognize the cues they were giving, but if I watched them for a while, I almost knew what card they had down to the number. If you play them for a while, you almost know, and it's because you're reading cues off of people. Now, this is more of a game than I was feeling in the past, whereas to me, everybody sitting there with a beat of staying alive in their head at the same time and playing a card and a rhythm to it does not feel like a game to me. That's like that's an activity or something. I don't know, but that didn't feel game-like to me. The actual playing of the mind, the way it's supposed to be played without the song, is a much more enjoyable experience. My family has enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. I've now beaten it, even without cheating. Quote, cheating. I do have a higher respect for it now. Now, is this a game I'm going to want to get out and play as the main part of my game night? Never. It's never going to happen. This is a 5 or 10 minute filler that you can explain to anyone in about 15 seconds. And it's, I mean, like, I explain this to this could be taught to literally anyone. I could teach this for a 4-year-old. So the 4-year-old would probably just forget it and talk, but you get the idea. I mean, the rules to it are so simple that anyone can learn it. I guess my opinion of it definitely went up. I definitely think I definitely think it is a game now. And I gotta say is it makes it a lot better if you don't cheat. And that's my re-review of The Mind. And I'm putting off my reviews of the GIPF series, which I've been doing. I'm going to wait until my next time for that because my family has just been playing nothing but Devon and Yinch. So I haven't been able to play any of the others in the series.
Well, that's good. That's a good sign, though. I mean, it's like if they just keep on playing those ones, like that they're hooked on to that.
Yeah, my oldest son just destroys everybody at Devon to the point where no one wants to play with them anymore. So I have a feeling that we may end up moving on to something else soon, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's just becoming.
I still should never play The Mind.
Well, Caroline loved this game, Trent.
Well, no, my issue is not so much that I would hate it. It's that being either on or exceedingly close to the autism spectrum, my ability to pick up on social cues is non-freaking existent. So
I felt like I will say this, Joe, when I played it with Caroline, I often, especially in the later rounds, had a really good sense of what card she had. And I kind of did for we were playing at 3 players. I kind of did for the other guy, but with Caroline, I felt like I was really clear on what she was holding. Almost every time I had a good idea what her card was.
Yeah. Well, and that's like she does a lot of yeah, and I feel like it's almost you sitting there and watching like how quickly, like it's like at first you kind of need to learn how like jumpy is this person. You know, it's like you're taking hints from everybody to see like, well, how much does the difference need to be before they start to get on edge and get careful. And then you're like, it's like you kind of see where they're at and how they express it. And I think that, there and being able to sort of pick up on the cues that you're, technically not supposed to be sharing with each other. But, the more that once you discover a cue, now you got to challenge yourself to hide that cue and, like if you can hide your own cue and see if you can develop essentially a new one. It's almost like, where the meta slowly evolves. It's kind of like Hanabi that way, where it's like if you play the game with the absolute rules the way they are written, you only have so much, like a certain percentage of the game even there. If you play the game, though, enough, you develop like a system of like nonverbal communication that's just like sort of a procedural way that you handle it, which kind of can apply to the mind. But I definitely think the mind is more accessible and it's just quicker and more of like a filler for Hanabi. If you need a filler for a game that's already kind of a filler.
I don't think you need a filler Hanabi. I think it scratches a little bit of a different. It's definitely a lighter, but it's kind of in the same vein as Hanabi. I think in the end I like Hanabi better, but I definitely, my opinion of this changed. The first time I played it, I was like, I couldn't see what was there. I guess it just seemed. It really did.
You essentially played this with the game that your group essentially just automatically solved the game. And as Andy said, you're not even supposed to read that final page. You learn later on that like, oh, wait a minute. And it's really difficult, Trent, to once you have seen the way that your group approaches it and the way that totally takes the game away and makes it more of just an activity and totally kind of breaks the experience. It's tough to see something different, but that's pretty darn cool that this is something where listening to the people on Twitter got you back to trying this and seeing what you could find there, and that you did find that there was something there. There's something there. Maybe it's not, going to be the game that takes your life by storm, but I don't think that's what this game is trying to do. No. I think that you've seen what this game is doing now.
Yes. I had my first experience was we beat it on the first try and everybody was like, okay. And we put it back in the box and pushed it off to the side.
Nice. Yeah. And that experience, like, I'm finding more and more that, like, that can happen. And that obviously, a designer doesn't want to see that happen. I don't think anybody wants to see somebody play their game and just, totally just not connect with it at any level. But I do think that, like, that second attempt, the fact that you went back and tried it, and especially like when you've got people that are kind of like, hey, try this, this is what I like about it. That's what we communicate with each other for, to, when there's more information there and you feel like somebody is going to be able to find the entertainment there, that's like, I've listened to what people have told me. And that's kind of what this podcast has been for me, Trent. You guys, you and Andy have been the Twitter in that example of getting me to retry games that I looked at wrong the first time. I mean, the first game I thought in my head is Argent. And I think I mentioned that last year. Like, that's a game that's a really great, well-designed game that I did not have the ability to appreciate at first. And it's definitely something where, thanks to your guys' continued support of it, I've been able to turn around and see the things that I didn't understand and grasp at first.
We've been doing desensitization therapy with
desensitization.
Like, we started out, he just held like a D6 in his hand for a while.
That was it. No, at first you just put it on the table. You didn't, yeah.
Put it on the table, find out where
touching by the dice
bubble is. then we worked on to just rolling it once,
mm-hmm.
for no purpose, just rolling the dice.
Just roll the dice, just see what happens. Oh, there you got a 1. It's not always a 1. Oh, you rolled it again. That's another 1. That's another 1. I'm going to start writing this down. How many ones in a row is that, Jeff? Now, that would be how I see dice. How I actually roll dice is the same as everybody else. So, well, thank you, Trent, for that revisitation of The Mind. And it definitely is one that I think is going to be in my collection very, very soon. It's the first game that, like, Caroline, my wife Caroline, just immediately, that game spoke to her right out of the gate.
I could tell she enjoyed it. That was definitely clear to me pretty quickly.
Like, she just on, when I talked to her later on, that's a great game. And that's, most of the time when she just really likes the game, that's what she says about it. It's just, that's a great game. And so that
means it's to buy for you. That's what that means.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be joining the collection. So most likely. So that is The Mind, and that is also our review section. So let's move on now, guys, into what we feel is essential about Essen. So what's essential about Essen? And I know that when I went down this list, a lot of these I felt like some of them I was interested in at Gen Con, and I tried to avoid listing those. So I'm sure that you guys saw some that kind of felt like were marginally Essen releases, more like games that were previously available, but will also be available at Essen. So of the 1,200 and some odd games that are currently listed on the Board Game Geek live Essen preview, many of those are kind of like repeats and revisits and those things. So I tried to avoid putting those in here. I don't know. What about you guys? Did you find that, like, you're able to compile a list without those, or was it pretty sparse? Because I know this is more my wheelhouse as far as Euros go than you guys.
I kind of counted some that were like, I've already pre-ordered, but like their technical first time to purchase are at Essen. So, like Sierra Madre game stuff, like I don't wait till Essen to give money to Phil and make sure I get copies of those. So, but they're technically released at Essen. So I did some of that. So there's some on my list that, technically debut at Essen, but I already have copies coming somewhere between now and November related to Essen. So there's some of that on mine, but other than that, I tried to do just ones that were either being released at Essen or where Essen seems to be like the official debut of the game from that company.
Very cool. Very cool. So that's what I tried to keep to as well. I think that that's the way to try to keep it so that this is not going to be revisiting games we've talked about previously. Did that make it kind of tough for you at all, Trent? How did you approach this?
Well, I filtered the list in various ways, and what I found was there weren't. I ended up feeling like there weren't a whole lot of games I would say were games that were exclusively coming out to Essen that excited me. There were games that were definitely interesting to me, or as you said, they either A, came out at Gen Con, or B, are games that I'm getting via Kickstarter or some other method that are listed as games coming out at Essen. So, I mean, ones that I think of as really debuting at Essen, the ones I'm interested in is a really small list.
Okay. Gotcha. And I would add that I'm not still 100% sure that every game I've listed is brand new at Essen, but I tried to do my best, eliminating games that were previously discussed or games that were released in a different way that we've already addressed. So, yeah, that being all said, let's go ahead and get this thing kicked off. Essen looks this year to, for me, largely be offering expansions that I'm interested in to games that I've played previously, or continuing games in series of digestible games. And I just have it here organized like the list itself in alphabetical by publisher. So let's go ahead. My first one from Abacus Spiel is the next game coming out from Deckscape. I've been following the Deckscape so far and been enjoying those ones. I especially like how easy and accessible they are as escape room games. This one's set in El Dorado. So I look forward to seeing a more, hopefully, well-executed and out in the wilderness, sort of like I want a destination game for these Deckscape and Unlock games. I want them to be destination-like games. I want them to be set in an environment that is not where I'm sitting right now. I don't want to feel like I'm claustrophobically locked inside of a hotel. And that's the way that the last one, Heist in Venice, had some very interesting mechanics going on. This one looks more interesting to me just in terms of setting. So that's my first one, Deckscape, El Dorado. Next one is from Aaliyah. I've been taking a look here at Carpe Diem, which is like the new Aaliyah box. If you look at this box, Carpe Diem looks, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks to me like it could have been released 20 years ago. I would say that the artwork on this game looks older than Princes of Florence. And here we have a new game coming out from Stefan Feld that involves his, brand of mixing together mechanisms with a central sort of spoke system of some sort. We've seen Mancala, we've seen dice being used like that in many ways. This one looks to be using card drafting and tile placement. So, he did that in Amerigo with tile placement. I know this looks to be kind of a shorter, lighter game coming out from him. So hopefully playing about 60 minutes, 2 to 4 players. Carpe Diem, Stefan Feld's new game. Anything from you guys? Any interest in Stefan Feld's new games? I know his last couple, I think that you have specifically not liked, Trent. And Andy, yes. I think longer than just the last couple. Andy, you've kind of been...
Yeah. The only thing...
The last Feld game I really liked was Bora Bora.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one dang thing I want out of Stefan Feld games that I have not seen is like the deluxe Castles of Burgundy with everything that's ever been made in super nice components, and why the living crap this doesn't exist already with all the other deluxeified games that aren't nearly as good as Castles of Burgundy that have been made. I don't know, but somebody get on that and get it made, dang it, because that's something out of Stefan Feld I actually really want.
If they made that, I'd be interested too. If they made a really deluxeified,
I'm sure there's got to be a crap. Like, I don't know why this is not a thing. It should be a thing.
I agree with you. I care more about getting everything in one box. I mean, they've done this for like Notre Dame for the 10th anniversary of Notre Dame. They've also done it for the. I want to say the way. Is it the Way of the Dragon? Yeah, that's
in the Year of the Dragon.
The Year of the Dragon. That's what it is. They did that. They put them together. Aaliyah, I think that it's a pipe dream to want good components. Aaliyah is going to want to sell at the cheapest price point possible. And to their credit, in their defense, they do generally get very cheap price tags, whereas everybody else is selling for $50. they'll be selling for $10, $20 cheaper than that. So
yeah. But maybe I can just laminate everything.
There you go, Andy. You'll buy the coin protectors, you know, that are made for coin collections, so that the circular chits, you know, you can actually put them inside of a sleeve.
Yeah. Now I'll just get like 10 mil thick lamination and make my own dang tokens out of it.
And then don't forget, dude, you gotta, whatever you do, you've got to give yourself carpal tunnel, so you got to be cutting it with an X-Acto knife as well.
Yeah. And mount it on, like triple thick chipboard, and oh god, I'm doing that again.
I'm going to quickly mention an expansion to a game I've not even played, but seeing that there's an expansion out for a game makes me want to play the base game that I've heard good things about already, even more. I almost played this with Jeff Gamble when I was out there. I saw this on his shelf. I wanted to play it. Unfortunately, did not have any time to play any games when I was out there. We just had to record an episode, and then I had to go out to the airport. I'm talking about Santa Maria American Kingdoms, which is the expansion to Santa Maria. I've not yet played it. I've heard really good things about it. I've heard that it is a nice, like, kind of your dice drafting, but it's got sort of a grid, like, elements to it. Have you guys had a chance to try or see Santa Maria at all?
Nope.
I'm more of a Nina and Pinta kind of guy.
Well, the Santa Maria would be the largest one. So you're gonna you like the lighter version then? So you're waiting for them to make a card game or a dice game, Andy?
No. Smaller ships are better. Smaller ships are better for pirate activity.
Okay, fair enough. You want to be able to do pirates like in, you know, Madeira.
Yeah.
Pirate tokens. The white collar pirates.
I want to attack you and take your cardboard chits.
Well, you'll have to do that in a different game. I don't think that Santa Maria is going to have that. But I'm just interested to see that they're having an expansion out for it. And I still haven't played the base game, but I really want to try it, and I want to try the expansion as well. Why don't I go ahead and pass off the torch here? Which one of you guys wants to pick it up?
Oh,
what game are you looking forward to?
Let's see. Let me go to my BGG list. One that is coming out that I'm interested in playing. I unfortunately, due to budget constraints, cannot purchase. But there's a lot of buzz and love being given to Captains of the Gulf by Jason Dinger, and I've talked to him on Twitter here and there. He's a really nice guy and straightforward. And so I've got to hear kind of a little bit of the history of how he made this game, and that has me a little bit interested in it. Because it looks to be kind of a fairly Euro-esque game, but I don't remember where I heard him talking about this, but he talked about how basically I think it was either his dad or some close relatives were essentially fishing boat captains down there where he lives. And so he has all this history in his family of doing fishing in the Gulf of Mexico and other places and doing things like that. And so it was kind of a passion project for him, and he was putting in his sort of family history and background into making the game. And whenever I hear someone doing that, even if it's Euros and I may not play that, you know, I'm not as interested in Euros anymore. When I hear someone put their kind of feelings and history and background into it, it makes me at least really want to look at it and try it because I don't know. It's kind of more personal than like it. You know what I'm saying? It's like he made this because he cares about that theme and that background rather than just making a game to put out. And I think that
it's kind of like with the 18 CLE, 18
right,
Cleveland.
Yeah, that was much more interesting to me hearing the history of it. And I don't know, that to me means like if you have someone that cares about the history and such that they're putting into the game, I think you have a better chance to really end up with something kind of special and magical, if that makes sense. And I know it's Spielworks is putting out, so it's kind of cool. Like Spielworks licensed a game from like a dude in southern like America. I don't know where he lives now. Is it Louisiana or Texas? It's around there. It's on the Gulf.
Louisiana.
That's what I was thinking.
What I've heard. Yeah.
And it looks like he's posted on Twitter another couple like prototypes of games he's making related to other aspects of the fishing industry too, which is kind of cool. But yeah, he seems like a really nice guy. It seems like this game is trying to distill kind of important aspects of his family's history into a board game, and that makes me kind of interested to try it. Like I said, if unfortunately, because of budget constraints with me not working this year, I kind of had to pass on the pre-order. But I know, like, they were gone. Like, Game Surplus had a thing, like, done, gone.
Dude,
like,
I could not. Yeah, I couldn't get any. So I'm really excited for this one. I usually, because of Haitabu, when I see Spielworks,
make me a little afraid there sometimes.
I definitely like it. I kind of have to have a staring competition with the logo for a second. Like, are you gonna do that again? That's so. Yeah. Have you played Haitabu again?
I have played Haitabu.
Did you buy it when it was $5?
Yes.
And you played it after buying it for $5?
Well, no, I played it before then, and I played it after then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've played it multiple times.
Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it.
It's no longer in my collection.
Oh, that was the next question. I was gonna ask, but I figured you. Okay, all right. It's no longer in your collection.
Just hopefully, if he has like fish meat.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It just didn't do anything distinctive at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like the generic Euro, like the generic resource management Euro.
That's kind of what I felt when they did the Deluvia project, with something like that too. But
I heard a couple.
I'm just hoping, like, if he has little fish meeples or something, that they don't come out like 1/10 of the size they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. That would be nice. Yeah, that would be Solarius mission. They came with a bunch of those punch.
At least if you're gonna screw it up, go Splatter. Make them like 10 times bigger than they're supposed to be.
Yeah,
the fish meeples are the size of actual fish. Like,
yeah, if Splatter tried to make Cthulhu Wars, they would make essentially like throne-sized plastic miniatures.
We made a scale model of Cthulhu. What's the scale? 1 to 1.
And we meant to make it a much different thing, but that decimal we just haven't got it figured out yet. So, which we are going to be talking about Splatter. Is that on either of your guys' list?
Yes, it's
I'll let Trent talk about that one. I had it on my list though.
Okay. I'm going to talk about the expansion for Food Chain Magnet, which will not be there for release, but will be there for demo. And it's called the Catch-Up Mechanism and Other Ideas.
Very clever.
Yeah, the name is hilarious. Basically, it sounds like it's just a bunch of modules for the game, kind of like the etc. expansion was for Roads and Boats, kind of. Like, it's just a bunch of like things you can add to modify the game a little bit.
I want a crossover expansion so that I can play Food Chain Magnet with the gods of the Great Zimbabwe.
No, you make burgers to deliver on donkeys.
There you go. That's another way. Or you can make your donkeys into burgers. That sounds awful.
I was trying to think what they would put into it. My guess is there's going to be something in there. There's kind of two things that my guess is going to be in there. One, something that causes people to shift away from trying to get the guru as fast as possible. And two, probably something that will like widen, what you pick at the beginning. So it's not just, I have to pick this card, then I have to pick this card. Where there's like a couple strong opening things you can do, and if you don't do those, then you're stupid.
Well, I'm telling you right now, they could add a few cards to that tech tree that would ruin the strategy as it is.
Oh yeah,
ruin the guru strategy. Like,
right.
Add a card called Headhunter that makes it like makes everybody's dudes expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, my guess is that's what they're going to do, because the people that claim that it's a broken game, that's what they complain about. So my guess is it'll be something to address that.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Somebody rushing the guru is really annoying. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But
did you see the tweet that Tom Russell put out about that?
No.
Oh God, it was hilarious. And I like Tom Russell, so this is not me being mean, but it was something like, I feel embarrassed that it took me a week to get what the catch-up mechanism was, a pun or like a play on words or something. Like, he just pictured a bottle of ketchup in his mind and never like thought about the idea it could be a catch-up mechanism.
I'm not that surprised, just knowing that Tom's mind works in a very specific way. His games are super, super unique. You know, like I'm going to cut the guy some slack here.
Yeah, no, I would tell. It was just slightly amusing, but nah, he's like
That's
a super
funny.
nice guy too, so it's awesome.
But anyway, Food Chain Magnet is is a game that will probably never leave my collection. I really, really, really like it. So this is an expansion I'm excited about. Even though they haven't really announced any sort of details for it other than cryptic splatter stuff that doesn't really tell you anything really specific.
Nice.
Just
side items.
People, yeah. Well, I like how they do that though, where they they always like post in the preview of just the same exact post every time. It's like a 20-year anniversary thing, and it's never the game that they're actually going to release. They're just telling you like, keep listening, keep your ear to the ground here. We got something coming, so that's pretty exciting. So what Splatter has to offer is very exciting this Essen.
They did mention, I think, in the next couple of years, possible reprints for Roads and Boats and Bus.
Cool. Well, I mean, you know, Bus is one that I really want to try. Like, I've always been fascinated by Splatter's designs, even if they weren't ones that I was like, you know, pumped to try. I don't think there's been a Splatter game I've disliked. And just in our chat here, it sounds like one of our listeners has been putting together his own sort of a retheme of a Splatter game that hopefully we'll be able to see someday. So I think that's really cool to see, like, that people are taking Splatter games and still playing around with them, even though we're down the road and Splatter keeps on putting out new ones. So I think that to me is an extremely unique company where every time they put something out, it's like the exact point on the Venn diagram where Andy and I are just both very entertained. And I think Splatter does that, and no other game company does it as well as Splatter does. Because they have the mistakes, you know, like the mistakes that makes Andy love them. And the gameplay as well is usually really easy to enter, but super deep. And that's like, that checks boxes for me, checks boxes for Andy. And yeah, we're all happy. And Trent, I think you can just pretty much ride that on both of our coattails. I think you enjoy them maybe even more than us.
Maybe, I don't know. Sure. Yes.
So, yeah, I think so. I've seen how you get during Splatter games, so just be careful, you know. Don't get too close to Trent if you're going to talk about playing a Splatter game. So
I will say, just in case you're curious, Indonesia's my favorite.
Oh yeah, me too.
One mention in the chat was maybe this one of these expansions to Food Chain Magnet, one of these modules will involve elements of Indonesia, like the merging of companies. Maybe have some sort of a way to merge restaurants in Food Chain Magnet. I don't know how that would work.
That would be hilarious, but yeah,
it would be hilarious. But if you work a lot harder to get a restaurant out on the board, you know, and it's a lot more like than just buying something at face value. So
you gotta work it to get out another restaurant in Food Chain Magnet.
Just imagine the glare that I would like if you're gonna take my restaurant. You're gonna take my restaurant. Like that's
fried geese and donkeys is all mine, sucker. What's the other one? This was technically a Kickstarter, but I guess its official debut as Essen was 18 Lilliput.
Yes, that was one that's on my list. You guys keep checking them off because I'll just skip over those when I get to it. That's one of Lenny Orgler, I believe. It's Lenny, right? Who's the guy behind 1824, 1837. Not on his own, I believe. I think he might be designing those with others, but also like Russian railroads.
Yeah. No, so it's basically like 18XX, the card game. So
yes,
it should be interesting and plays in about like an hour to an hour and a half. So I can maybe get that feeling in a game night where it's not the only game that I make people play the whole night.
Andy said it himself, the only game I make people play all night. Even he has remorse sometimes.
No, not really, but yeah.
Not for real. But no, I
feel bad that I have to chain them to the table and like not unlock them, but until it's done. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Yeah, no, you got to take care of yourself, and sometimes that involves, you know, taking away other people's free will. So that you can get your
his leg off, but you know, it healed. They have prosthetics. It's fine.
Grows back. Yeah. No permanent harm, no foul. That's for me. You know, it's not just no harm, no foul, no permanent harm. You got to be able to set things right eventually. But just time will heal all. You know, so ultimately, just anything. You know, no foul. That you just shorten it to just no foul.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got a barrage here because I didn't realize this, but I didn't click the show more button at the bottom of the page. So I actually have 59 titles on this, which, yeah, there you go. So
okay, just blow through a bunch, Joe, because otherwise we'll be here literally all night.
This is true. Blue Lagoon, new Reiner Knizia. It's getting pretty decent reviews so far. I think that the current generation of gamers is less receptive to the genius of Reiner Knizia than gamers were when Reiner Knizia's Tigers and Euphrates literally kicked off Board Game Geek. People talking about Reiner Knizia's Tigers and Euphrates kicked off the website we know and love, and he has been putting out games, but people have been very critical of them. Now some of them for very good reason, but I've noticed that people don't quite, like the core gamers, I think, if Tigers and Euphrates were to come out and have no other game like it, and it were to come out for the first time this year, I think a lot of people would just look right past it because like people are almost desensitized to the type of games he's putting out. So Blue Lagoon, interested about. I need to blow through these, so I'm just going to keep going. Gloomhaven's expansion looks to be releasing there, which is exciting to me. I really wanted to pick it up at Gen Con, but it looks to be there. There's a game called Chronicles of Crime, which involves cooperative play storytelling, adventure, and deduction, and had a very high rating. And I thought, like a storytelling crime game, to me, I want to see how it involves storytelling in it. Like, do they mean like reading a story, solving a puzzle? A lot of these things made me ask questions. I don't know much about it, but it's coming out from Corax Games. I thought it looked interesting. I am participating in the Kickstarter for Tudor, and so I was kind of surprised to see that Tudor is actually coming out at Essen. I believe that Tudor is being printed. It's Academy Games here in the U.S., different publisher for Europe, but it's definitely coming out at Essen. I'm looking forward to my copy of Tudor coming in. It's the one that has those rings that sit on top of your player screen so people can see what you have, like little plastic rings. It's that one. Very, very, very excited. I will pass the torch back to you guys here after I get done with these next two. The first one is Barrage, which is an English-Italian first edition from Cranio Creations. This game, to me, I am interested in what Cranio Creations is putting out simply because of the next game on this list, but Barrage looked interesting to me. The really one that I'm super pumped about and just, oh my goodness, I cannot get my hands on this fast enough. I couldn't get a copy at Gen Con. Sad, 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 but still possible, hopefully soon, Newton. Newton is the new game in the series. Think Marco Polo. Think Grand Austria Hotel. Think those games from, I believe, is it Simone? It's, I don't know how to spell it exactly, Luciani. This one, I saw the game on the table. It looked fantastic. The game involves moving around Renaissance age Europe, and basically you are, it's science themed. Essentially, it's a science themed Marco Polo type game where there's now two different maps. There's like a technology tree that you move through. So thinking about it like science and a technology tree, Isaac Newton, I'm just so excited for this together tied with that point-to-point movement, which I think is something that is really unique and very successful about Marco Polo. And I want to see Simone Luciani revisit this in Newton because there were elements that I loved about Marco Polo, but the traveling part of the game, so crucial to the game, but is definitely the part where experienced players will acknowledge that you can really get frustrated when the game does not set you up for a viable journey. You can make the best out of what there is, but really like, I feel kind of like that's where just the way that the dust settles, there's little that you can do to change it when you get just cards that suck. And I think that Newton having that point-to-point movement looks to really hopefully improve upon it. The early reviews are not as high as Marco Polo was, so I don't know. Maybe it's people are trying to hold it directly next to Marco Polo and it's not quite holding up. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm still super excited about it. It doesn't diminish my excitement for Newton. So that's my big hype. I'll pass it off now. What's next for you guys? What are you looking forward to in Essen?
You want me to go ahead and go, Trent?
Sure. I don't have very many, so.
Okay. Let's see. The other one, I think Clay is counting Essen as the official debut of this, is the Estates.
Yes.
It was on Kickstarter, but I think he's counting Essen as sort of the official release, although it sounded like with a little luck, people who pre-ordered may even get their copies before Essen, so I don't know. But anyway, it's basically Neue Jaime done in a little bit nicer art, well, actually a lot nicer artwork form, and basically tagged as the most brutal auction game in existence. So it has me very much interested in it. It also sounds like a massively opaque auction game as well. So like the people who have complained about it usually is because they were trying to play it like a traditional auction game, and thus they weren't getting into that deeper level. Like there's times you really want to take something that you have no interest in, but you know somebody else does, and there's finagling here and there, and there's all kinds of ways you can do it. And sometimes it does make the most sense to specifically put something up for auction just to screw other people. Like that's what you do. So you try to set up, sort of a mini alliances where you're kind of both working together and things, making the money, holding it, saving it, that kind of thing. Anytime that a game comes up to play that someone describes as brutal and says that you can actually win this game with a winning score of 0, I'm like, okay, yeah, you've got my attention.
So I loved my play of this game. It was with Carmen, Game Surplus. So he had this game. He had I think he had the original, that Noia Heimat that came in like the red box that had like a sleeve that you put over it. It was
that's the typical like Chili Feel one. Yeah, no, the game's ridiculous because it looks like a freaking kid, like a 4-year-old's toy. It's look, it's so cute. And then like you're crying on the table 20 minutes later because everyone's done horrible things to you.
My thing to say about I'm only one play in, but I feel like if this game was slightly less mean, slightly less players resting on players, I'd feel like this is the perfect, not easy, but easy to explain, but hugely deep game that I would expect from, say, Reiner Knizia. So for me to say that, Reiner Knizia at the top of his form, like the Estates to me is a very top-notch. I know the gameplay here is going to be really solid. The production looks very good. So very much excited to get this one as well.
Yeah. Well, and I also like he added in some things like to change how people want to play it. But the thing that was the like unofficial way to play it for a lot of people was you play 3 rounds. But you play 3 rounds and you don't reset the money.
Okay.
So if you manage to collect a lot of money, like, okay, I'm going to eat it the first round so that I can have better bidding power in the next rounds. That they said that apparently that's like the way if you want to play it as a full game rather than as like a quick filler. The thing I'm also really liking component wise was he said the checks or the money for this, because it's like was paper money before.
Yeah.
They're going to be that quality of the bills in Tesla versus Edison.
So very nice.
That stuff was really nice. So I don't even mind paper money if it's going to be that kind of paper money. So yeah, no, I know Clay put a lot of work into this one. I'm really hoping like Edward actually convinced him to do one more Chile spiel, because they have one that's literally a box of rocks.
Nice.
I just want to know the guy at Panda who gets stuck with it. It's like, I need rocks, actual rocks.
Shipping is going to be ridiculously
costly. Oh, God, yeah. Well, anyway, the Estate's really looking forward to it. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Very cool. I'll insert a dollop of them here, Trent, and you go after that then, because I do have a bunch. For me, Altiplano is getting an expansion, and listen to this, guys, before you think, whatever, another Euro expansion. With Altiplano, the Traveler, the planning of moves in Altiplano becomes more important, and accessibility to resources becomes more interactive. So to me, that sounds interesting. I still, unfortunately, haven't got a chance to play Altiplano. I own it. I've read the rules. Haven't even played it yet. But I'm really excited to the fact that, this is going to make it more interactive. Sounds like something that maybe would be more interesting.
Yeah, our mutual friend will never buy the expansion then. Who really does.
Not for interactivity. Not if you enjoyed the beautiful things that you built in all your games of Altiplano. Probably not going to be as beautiful if other players have something to do about it. But that's Altiplano, the Traveler. Trent, what do you think about that?
I actually like Altiplano better than Orleans, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. It was one of the few I had written down, so
So I did. I took one of yours. Darn it, man.
That's okay. Yeah, but it was one of the ones I had written down. It's basically replaced Orleans for me.
Yeah, I did not like Orleans a ton, and I know that there's like Orleans is super popular, but to me, I'm hoping that Altiplano will be kind of a similar thing, because that's kind of I bought it on faith that like it would be something I enjoy, I enjoy for the reasons that Orleans is not as enjoyable for me. So, well, I don't know if I said that right. Anyway, moving on. Manitoba, from the same company. I think the way Manitoba looks like a Euro game that deals with the Canadian province of Manitoba, which, if you actually know, is like basically plains. But the cover of this is like a whole bunch of Native Americans, and I'd say that this sets the time period as being Manitoba before it was really that colonized by Europeans. To me, that's a very interesting thing. I know it's taken some flack from people in Manitoba saying that like this is appropriation, but really like I don't know why they chose this game to say. I don't want to open up that can of worms, but I'm really surprised that they chose specifically this game of Manitoba for a reason that this is like appropriation of a culture, because I think that there's a lot worse games out there that they could choose.
Is that the one with like the I don't know the actual.
Oh, I think it has a totem pole on the front cover, and I think that might be the issue is that it's not. I think it looks cool, so maybe I'm just so ignorant that even I don't know this. But I think that they're going for a time period when Native Americans operated without necessarily the influence of European powers. And I think that's what they were trying to go for, to try to say like this is evocative of a previous time, pre-Columbian.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, I knew. I read something about that. The thing that I had read that people were upset about wasn't that they like tried to take one culture. It's that they put different cultures together that were like not linked in any way. So for example, they had the totem pole, but then they had the tents of a nomadic native culture. And nomadic native cultures are not going to build giant wood frickin' monuments to take down and move around. Like the totem pole phenomenon was with settled native cultures. And so I think that's what offended people, was it just seemed like we weren't going to do any work at all to make this.
I understand what they're saying.
Disingenuous, but
okay. I just want to say something really quick. I took a class in college on linguistics of Native American languages. Yeah. It dealt with hundreds of languages at once saw similarities between disparate groups, and very largely operated under you can't do a class on that specific topic without doing generalizing. And so I think that there was generalizing here the same way there was generalizing in this class I took. And it wasn't that like it was generalizing to try to hurt. It was that like, okay, it would be great to have a class that is just about the Cree Indians. That would be so cool, right? But there's just, having enough experience in that one thing and having that be a class that somebody has enough expertise in it. Most linguists that study Native American languages study them from a fairly like an aerial view, almost like a drone view. So I think that like to a certain extent, like just understand that like, there could be different cultures that are being represented at the same time. And it might look on the cover of that game like they're being portrayed as all part of one culture. But just because you have elements of one culture and another doesn't mean that it's something that's inherently necessarily wrong. I don't know, man. I don't know where this goes from here. But
how I was thinking, like the one I thought you were initially talking about, I don't even remember the name of this game. But
I think you're right. I think you might be right, dude, because this is what it kind of looks like on the cover. Anyway,
there was one that had it was like a New Zealand Maori warrior where they do the tribal dance where they stick out the tongue, and I'm like, I don't know, man. You might be going in a direction I wouldn't think you should do. But
and I don't want to open a can of worms, especially not on a podcast when we got a ton of stuff. Like, for example, the expansion to Great Western Trail. Is that going to show up on either of your radars at all?
Mine.
Okay. All right.
Well, my list is getting real short.
Are you going to talk about the expansion to Feast for Odin?
No.
Okay. Well, I will let you say what you have to say about Great Western Trail. I just mentioned it. The Feast for Odin Norway expansion, like Feast for Odin is one of those games where it's both entertaining to me and to my brother, who enjoys and appreciates heavier games, but doesn't really like it where experienced players can just cut the knees off of players that are new. And I think that he's just so used to being the newest player in a group of experienced players, and he's very good natured, doesn't get upset. But I just think that like he prefers it where he can at least feel kind of like what we were almost like, you know, mentioning earlier, Andy, like happy with what he's made and not so much worried about winning and beating other people. But like when other people can like interact with him and cut off his knees in a heavy game, he can get really upset. That's why he loves the Feast for Odin.
Can I please play Through the Ages with him?
Well, no, Trent, no. No, you can't. Not
you can
yet.
play it with Trent and me.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe we're gonna make Andy version 2, and then I'll have to live with him the rest of my life because he's my brother. No, you guys aren't doing that to me.
Be like, no, Joe, we're playing a war game because I'm gonna punch you a lot.
Well, I know he's coming in a war game. So I'm excited for this Norway expansion because give me more Feast for Odin, give me more boards, give me a few more things to play around with. The fact that this is still staying in that sort of historical Viking and going to Norway is really exciting to me. Other thing from Uwe Rosenberg coming out, Reykholt. To me, that worker placement element of this game, I want to see how it compares to his most recent Nusfjord, which is a fairly straightforward, simple worker placement game that I felt like was a cool game that I could enjoy, but I felt like, you know, it's one that fulfills a purpose for me, and that's that it's an easier Uwe game that has the elements, the variables that I can play with in the form of a robust building deck and several different ones that you can play with, but it still is like super, super simple. It's almost like Agricola, all creatures big and small, super simple, but you know, and disappointingly simple almost, but has other elements that I can latch on to get through that experience and enjoy it, because I still do own it, but I do think that it's like made more to allow me to teach people about worker placement than it is about, you know, me wanting to play it with my worker placement veteran friends. And so maybe Reykholt will be similar to that. By the way, Nusfjord expansion coming out for that, or an expansion deck, so I'm interested in that. New expansion coming out for This War of Mine. I still haven't gone through the narrative materials that are already there, so I probably won't buy this one, but I'm excited to see that they've got more things coming out. I definitely think that these guys that made This War of Mine, the video game, have amazingly adapted the game to board game form, and to the point where like the board game is like the video game, only better. I think like they somehow like took the mechanisms that worked in the video game and made it better. Endeavor Age of Sail is coming out. I've got that one. I think it just shipped. I should be getting that one like tomorrow or the day after from the Kickstarter, but that's the official release, so I'm very excited for that one with the new scenarios and a new exit game. So the exit games that are like the escape room games, there's one that's now for kids that's called Codebreaker. So, Trent, I know that you've played these exit games with your family. This one is supposed to be for kids. Is this going to pop up on your radar?
No, they're fine playing the exit games. I don't think they need a kids version. In fact, they did Stargazer's Manor by themselves without any adults and had no problem.
Okay. This one says Exit Codebreaker. It's a 15-minute game, and the ages are 7+. So
that would probably be closer for like my kids, because Will, the higher level ones we played, like Will just can't keep up and gets pretty frustrated, and my daughter has the attention span of a goldfish. So,
well, this might be like there's actually going to be 60 puzzles in 4 levels of difficulty in 10 differently themed worlds. So I mean, this is more like a kit almost, and they're 15 minutes. So maybe
it might work.
Because well, Exit, the Unlock Escape the Box games, Andy, that you've had success with those of your family. You guys had that subscription. I've enjoyed playing your seconds, like Andy's. Really
good. I like those.
Yeah, I was impressed. I've been impressed by those. I think I mentioned that on earlier reviews, but this seems to be like almost like a puzzle theme. It's almost, yes, the Exit gets me to look at it, and maybe I wouldn't otherwise, but like it almost seems like a totally different product. Like I expected it to be like a Exit game that's easy, but it's actually a bunch of puzzles that they're using the Exit game to maybe brand it and get more exposure. I'm going to stop there. So, Trent, I know that I tried to cut you off, but you mentioned the Great Western Trail. You mentioned another expansion. I tried not to say a ton about them when you said that they were on your list, so choose one of them, buddy.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with the Great Western Trail expansion. Great Western Trail is a game that I quite liked. Came out a couple years ago. This is an expansion for it. It seems to add... The things I've seen about it that interest me is it seems to reduce the luck amount in the game. The one thing that really frustrated me about Great Western Trail when I played it was the fact that you'd be playing and it's kind of a deck building game in a way. I mean, that's kind of what it's deck building is part of it. And there would be times when you'd be going through it and you would just simply not have the cattle cards that you needed. It just did not work for you. Like, no matter what you did, it didn't work. This mitigates a lot of that. A lot of this, there seems to be a lot of deck thinning and a lot of, like, quick cycling through your deck mechanisms in this, which is really interesting to me. Because there's times when you're going to want certain ones and times in which you're going to want the optimal hand and all this stuff. Plus, there seems to be a lot more variation in the delivery railroad, like you can deliver in different directions. I haven't really been clear on how that works, but there seems to be a lot going on and stuff in the direction that I usually like with games, so I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Very cool. I'll give a bunch more because I got this big old list. 2-player games that are based on larger games, like I'm talking Seven Wonders Duel, just for one example. Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small. I, for some reason, have always been very impressed at how they adapt the game for 2 players. There's always some interesting interactions that you can put in, and it looks like Cosmos is doing this in their 2-player series with Imhotep, which is a game that I have very much enjoyed that was nominated for Spiel des Jahres a couple years ago that's kind of like drafting, and it's almost more about like it's almost like a game about making your opponents get the least points, almost more so than it's you getting the most points. So I'm excited for that 2-player game of Imhotep. The Agricola Bubolkus deck is coming out, and this is so for the new version of Agricola. We're seeing here maybe, I'm not sure what Bubolkus stands for. I'm trying to figure it out, but it looks like it's a picture of a bull on the cover, and that makes me really excited. Maybe this will be like the new Belgium deck for this one, Trent. Maybe this can be what we use to make people swear off of ever playing Agricola with us.
That's part of the fun.
Maybe this will be the Bubolkus. The Bubolkus deck will be the new version's answer to what we're missing right now. So it's 120 new cards. Give me more cards for Agricola. The ones they've come out with so far have all been ones that I keep these boxes next to my bed, and even if I can't play the game as much as I'd like, I still love just opening those decks and looking through those cards. There's so many cool things going on. There's an Agricola expansion, though, that deck called the Bubolkus deck. Also, the re-updated new version of Agricola Farmers of the Moor. I really look forward to being able to play the new revised edition with the Farmers of the Moor, which I found to be an amazing expansion that really did a good job of balancing out that, the advantage of being first player is it's not as much of an advantage. You have tough decisions to make because of the presence of free actions. And with those free actions, it's always like an interesting decision because even though you usually go last, if you're the person that goes last in turn order, you're usually going to be the first person that gets crack at the board unless you get to take a free action. So I really appreciate what Farmers of the Moor adds. And they're doing a Caverna Cave versus Cave Era 2. I love Caverna Cave versus Cave Era 1. To me, it is just an excellent answer to what all I thought was missing in the base game of Agricola All Creatures Big and Small, because Agricola All Creatures Big and Small needed expansions to maintain my attention. Caverna Cave versus Cave Era 2, I was wondering what they meant by Era 1 originally. It looks like now we're going to be going into the Iron Age from wherever that first one was set. And it looks like the playtime might be a little bit higher on here. Maybe we're getting more. It is definitely an expansion. I'm really excited for Caverna Cave versus Cave. Also, the Forgotten Folk, the expansion, the big expansion to Caverna is coming out. Will it make me think higher of Caverna? Probably not, but I still want to try it. Gingerbread House also coming out from Lookout Games. This is all Lookout Game stuff. I've already talked about before how I enjoy like Cottage Garden, Uwe Rosenberg's tile-laying games. This is, I think, by the designers of Barren Park, and this Gingerbread House is more about building vertically than it is about building out like Barren Park. So I'm very excited for that. Isle of Skye is getting a Druids expansion, Andy. Isle of Skye, Druids. You love Druids, and you've told me before that you hated your first game of Isle of Skye, but you liked your second one. Now they're adding Druids. You love Druids. What are you?
Druids get to morph into a bear and like claw people's face off. Because I'm totally
only if we're lucky.
Oh, if I say yes, will you play it with me? Then
I'd
yes.
play it either way. It's fine.
Oh, well, how sweet of you, man. I already said the Nisfjord new deck, Patchwork Express, and the release of Treasure Island from Matago, which is like one of those games where you ride on the board, and I think it's Matago who does some amazing components in their other games. You played like Kemet. It's got some really beautiful miniatures and some really great art. Treasure Island has got the artwork of Vincent Dutrait, however you say his name, who did the amazing art on like the new Yellow Niangzi. That's Matago Treasure Island, which is looking to have players actually using coordinates and compasses and drawing on the board to locate treasure as you play the game. And I'll pause right at that moment and pass the mic over to Andy. I haven't heard from you in a while. What's the next game? Have we exhausted your list, or are you?
I'm just gonna throw out a few of them here at once because it's all pretty related. So I've got my, of course, all pre-ordered but all considered Essen releases. Sierra Madre Fest ordered. So those should be coming in somewhere in the October-November realm. So right now I have, was it the updated ones for Greenland and Neanderthal, and also the new release of Pax Emancipation, which will be Phil Eklund's take on sort of world slavery and what that means. And let me tell you, bring that game up on Twitter, and you will have a thread with hundreds of replies.
What game?
Pax Emancipation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the last one I even saw brought up, it involved like several people of like accusing Phil Eklund of being a racist and people defending him. And yeah,
hey, he's put himself in a bad position with that whole in defense of British colonialism stuff.
Yeah. I'd say that's about the equivalent of putting your head on the guillotine.
Well, the sad part is if you actually read the essay, it's not nearly as bad as the title. That was
an incendiary title. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an incendiary title, but he's using current stability to try to justify a stance that, he's not saying that like it wasn't wrong. He's just saying that like there were certain benefits. And
yeah. Like everything's a gray area in the world when you get down to it. But anyway, in this one, it's more of a co-op though. So there's not going to be any of this like weird, hopefully making people feel too uncomfortable thing. But it's either a co-op or a competitive co-op, so that it's one of those like you're all working together, but someone works better than the others kind of deal. The thing I like about Sierra Madre is, their games always make me think, kind of pick up a few things about history and how things work, but they are very much like they're constructed with a certain viewpoint and idea of what's going on. Like they're not made in a vacuum or anything. So I don't know. I always find them interesting. They're always quirky and unique. I can give them that. And, but yeah, so I got that on order. So I'm looking forward to those. Not that I'm ever going to play the game night, but I'll look at them and think that someday I will play them.
Well, like PAX Emancipation, the PAX games, anything that starts with PAX, you're going to be able to get that played. By the way, Matt Eklund had a PAX game. Did you see that, Andy? That was for release. I think it was for release at Essen. I put that on my list. I think just so I could mention it because of your interest in it. And I thought,
enough, I am not interested in all of that one.
Dude, I feel like I'm very interested. And here's why. More from a gameplay standpoint than not. Every time that I've ever said something that I enjoyed about Phil Eklund's PAX series, I feel like people have always kind of said, well, you seem to appreciate more of what Matt adds or what Cole Worley adds. And so I don't know what to expect from Matt Eklund. I think that what he's done to make the games more palatable has definitely been towards me, catering more towards me and encompassing me more in the Sierra Madre Games audience, because I don't really feel like a Sierra Madre Games audience member until you talk about those specific games. So I'm just excited to see what he's got.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think my thing with it is it fell more in towards the, not working in budgetary constraints, in that the thing I like about Sierra Madre is kind of what I've learned through them about the world we lived in or used to live in, and this one's PAX Transhumanity, which is sort of a look into the future. And frankly, whenever I've watched anything about transhumanity, the people that are doing it just annoy me. So, like, we would be cyborgs or this. I mean, what? You just put a fancy title in front of your name when you're spitballing in the wind, coming up with crap out of your butt, man. I'm sorry, but honestly,
you'd rather spend your time reading essays in defense of British colonialism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was gonna say, Andy, this is stupid, but you know the British colonialism. Really, people don't give that the credit to deserve. No.
Oh yeah, I'd rather read about that because that has something to do with history and see. Like I would rather read about it even if I hate it. Like I'm not saying
I understand what you're saying. It's more like you don't like the even though I feel like Andy, there's science. It's essentially science fiction to a certain extent.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like the mixture of anthropology and science fiction, and I mean to me that doesn't upset me. But I can see where you're coming from. You and your appreciation for these games is not so much about the fictional aspects, but what they've made you realize about the world around you, and this is not dealing with the world around you. So I get where you're going with this. For me, though, it's more the game that I'm looking forward to.
I think Trent probably put it best for me in Sierra Madre games is Sierra Madre games are my thematic games.
Sure. I actually do like learning about these things with you as well. So just so you know, dude, you can get these things played at game night, just, you know, especially the shorter ones. I would really love to try some of the ones like Neanderthal and Greenland. I really do, actually, like legitimately want to learn about that stuff.
I know reading Bios Megaphon. I'll bring that soon.
Sure. Well, I'll play one of those sometime. Maybe if a new one comes out, maybe that'll be the time to get me into it. And maybe, you know, once we get it started, maybe they'll catch. You never know. You might catch the attention of some of a group at game night, and then they'll keep asking for some of the other ones. So you never know what could take. Trent, have we covered everything on your list? What's next?
I have one more that is not covered, and that is Terraforming Mars Colonies. It's another expansion for Terraforming Mars, adds more corporations, which I think is what the game really needs, because they're actually pretty sweet variable player powers. I actually enjoyed playing this one as a solo game quite a bit, so more stuff, the better for me.
Well, and you're playing with that puzzle, and these are more little pieces that you can try to build the puzzle around.
Yeah, it's like I've got a 1,000-piece puzzle, and there's another 100 pieces in the box.
That's a really interesting way of looking at those solo games. Very cool. So I've got a bunch here. Cerebria, the card game, which I've got that Cerebria, the whatever, Inside the Mind, something. The new game coming out from Mind Clash Games, folks behind Tricerion. By the way, new expansion for Tricerion, Donic Technology, also on Kickstarter, is being listed as at least being present during the fair. I don't believe it's going to be there for sale, just for demo. However, the Cerebria card game will be for sale. I wonder, you know, what is a card game going to be like from the folks that have only, as far as I've played, had like really heavy games. So I wonder, you know, what's this going to be? And I'm interested to see that. Adios Calavera. Seeing this game, to me, it's like an abstract strategy game that had like a bajillion different little character expansions. It looks almost like a Day of the Dead themed Santorini, but I don't want to go as far as to say that it's going to be like Santorini with a 3-dimensional play. You know, just a 2-player abstract game with the mention and the expansions involving more characters. To me, like the idea of what Santorini does with each person taking a player power and seeing how they can make this otherwise fairly simple abstract game work in a 2-player environment. To me, very cool. And maybe Adios Calavera is going to be something like that. I am very, of course, interested in Day of the Dead themed things. I'm going to be pretty soon getting into my Day of the Dead unit that I teach in my high school Spanish class. Speaking of the Iberian-related peoples, Azul is the stained glass of Sintra coming out. Now, Azul is what it is because of the beauty of its simplicity, that everything there makes sense. It's easy to teach. And so for that reason, I'm like, do I even want to... I'm definitely not going to buy this expansion until I've played it, because I don't like... Azul seems to me like a game that doesn't need an expansion. However, they've one coming out. I'm definitely going to try it. There is also I believe, just German version of it. There's a couple of escape room games that look to be being published. Maybe these were originally available in the U.S. and now they're being published in Germany. So I'll just skip on to that. Oh, Teotihuacan.
Oh, this was one I'm interested in as well.
So by the same people that made
Tzolk'in,
yeah. And I'll let you take it from there.
Spiritual successor, but gameplay wise, very different. I don't know. Like this one was not like an insta buy for me, but I really want to try it. I know Heavy Cardboard's been really pushing it. He got a hold of like an advanced copy kind of thing to show at conventions. And like so far, like any heavy gamer that's played it has really liked it.
Dude, the way that it looks on the table, the way that you have this huge pyramid that's being built like by covering things up, to me, very excited for this one too.
And I've heard it's crunchy as all get out too. And like I kind of watched part of the teach when they did it live. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of things going on in this game. And
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely it sounds like this is going to be the quote unquote heavy game coming out of Essen this year.
Very cool.
I watched the demo of it. I didn't get in, but I watched most of a demo of it at Gen Con. It looked really interesting. It looked like a game where you kind of start setting up combos of actions. Like you start setting up a chain of things where like your first few rounds you're doing one action that goes around the table fast, and then later on you're trying to set up the output of this action is basically lets you do another action of a different kind, which lets you do another action over here in this part of the board and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of engine building, but very interactive.
Yeah. I have not heard anybody say one bad thing about this game yet. Like
it's liked it, sounds like. So I mean, guy's got good taste and understands many different games. So I'm excited for that one. It sounds like there's just been nothing but positive things to say, and I mean, it's already got a great pedigree. So I'm excited for that. Next down on my list is Concordia Venus, and now you might think, oh, this is just the new expansion to Concordia. It's just a new map. No, this is adding 2-player like team variants of Concordia. Boom! What? And you now have the goddess Venus and personality cards that involve a new god. Like you start the game, no expansion has added new cards that actually are like a totally new god. Now you've got a brand new goddess of Venus that's going to be able to be shuffled into your deck. So to me, this one looks to be a larger box set, kind of like the Salsa one was. At least the artwork for this one looks good. The Salsa expansion, probably the worst artwork for a board game expansion I have ever seen. Just wrong on many levels. But that is that specific one. Concordia Venus, excited for that. Carson City, the card game. You know what? Xavier Georges, the guy who designed Trois and the amazing Carson City, I'm really excited to try what he's got in store for a card game. Key Flow is being released after my very lukewarm feelings towards Keeper. For Key Flow, am going to keep this one at arm's length until I see a reason to really pursue it. But this is the new one from Richard Breeze, who always does an excellent job with amazing geek lists that tell the story of how the core idea for the game evolved. You can find that on BGG. It's got a ton of thumbs on it. It was a very interesting read. The Quest for El Dorado is getting an expansion called Heroes and Hexes, which is going to be for sale at Essen, and I love teaching people about deck building with El Dorado. To me, it's the perfect game to teach deck building because it's like actually makes deck building doable for like kids. To me, it's the first one that's really done that. So I'm excited for that. Anybody else? This is Reiner Knizia, El Dorado. Have you guys?
I played El Dorado with you. I liked it. I don't really know what an expansion would change about it, but sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be adding more stuff, and I'm worried. I want some variability of what cards are on offer, and I think that's going to be in this. So I think I'm going to be essentially buying a big box expansion, which is going to have a bunch of new maps and all this stuff that I really don't care if I get or not, to get essentially a deck of cards that's going to just give some variety to what set is available in each game. So I like the intentionality of the card offering, the way that you can put cards up that you want. So anyway, that's El Dorado. The game Blossoms looked like a pretty looking little 2-player game that I thought maybe Caroline would like, so I put that on this list.
Is it about like a teen girl in like the 80s having awkward times growing up?
It's not, Andy. It's not. Seven Wonders is getting a new expansion called Armada. And did not like the Babel expansion for the Babel element. I thought that it was a largely the first time I played it, I thought it was okay, and then I just really got sick of it afterwards. I thought, this is not what I wanted this game to do. It just adds more stuff. So maybe Seven Wonders Armada will give players a better way to interact with a larger player count, because that's one of the main things that I think that Babel was looking to do, and I don't think that it did it super well with the Babel part. The Great Projects was a little better, but maybe with this Armada, it'll actually add some elements that make it a bit better for larger player counts. Concept is getting a kids edition that's focusing on animals. This is the game that's kind of like charades with graphic design, but it's going to be all about animals. This will probably be better suited in my classroom than the original Concept. Kids really struggle with the original Concept. It's really hard to convey things. It's a lot to try to keep in your mind. It's tough. Like, it's real tough. Especially, it's tough for me. It's real tough for the kids. Forbidden Sky is finally going to be available for sale, because it was there for demo at Gen Con. It looked really cool. Early reviews have not been as high as I'd hoped them to be, but Forbidden Desert was, in my opinion, fantastic and better than Forbidden Island. We'll see what Forbidden Sky has in and now I'm down at PAX Emancipation and PAX Transhumanity, which we've already kind of discussed. So I'll use this as and in the Estates and Captains of the Gulf. Wow, all this stuff just happened to be, and Food Chain Magnet. All this stuff was right in order. So I'll pass the torch here. I think, Trent, you already said you got your last one in there.
I'm done, yeah.
So, Andy, anything?
I had a couple things I think left to talk about.
Okay.
One, I don't know if it counts as Essen. I don't think so, but I know it's coming out, I think, shortly after Essen, is the Kickstarter for Pipelines from Capstone Games. It's sort of the game that's going to, I don't know. Anyway, very heavy economic Euro. We'll put it this way.
It's like 18 oil.
No, it's not quite like that. It's very much like a planning game. It's very much like you have to look at everything and think about, how am I going to link these all together to get here? Like, you can't
kind of like Small City sort of a thing, but more of a route connecting version of like where small cities like city building.
Well, kind of like you get these pipes, right? So it's like one of those, like pipe puzzles where you have curved pipes and straight pipes and all that. Right?
Oh, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying.
And you have to have so many links of them to refine oils to higher to higher qualities. Okay. So if it's like similar to the prototype I played, you're like, you get contracts, which then you have to get pipes, which then you have to get oil to work through. And the way it worked when I played it was different aspects of the game can automate your process, but you have to constantly be thinking of your plan when you do that. And it kind of like the action selection worked similar to Agricola in that, like, in one round you got a bunch, and then you got less, and then you got less, and then you get like 2 actions the last round. So it becomes harder and harder to make this plan work. And we'll put it this way. When I played it, that's the first time on a first play of an economic game that I had to take out penalty loans.
Which, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
No, my brain was bleeding out of my ears. But I've heard they've done some things to make it a little bit easier. Like, it's still very much a heavy economic game. Very heavily focused on planning. So the interaction in it, from what I've seen and remember, at least what I played, it's more of a I'll take that strategy, i.e. like, yeah, that looks really good for anyone. I'll get that right now. Thank you. But yeah, it's very much a heavy planning game. Like, yeah, I died the first time I played this. Like, no, I wasn't even in contention for a good score. The second time I played it, I started getting there. But yeah, it's got this three-dimensional sort of, well, not three-dimensional, but two-dimensional sort of pipe network you set up.
Yeah, I got it in my head. Like, it reminds me of the mini game that you had to hack turrets in like BioShock. But yeah, right. It was turning.
Yeah, and like everything costs money, and so you have to buy what you need, but not too much of what you need, and and all that.
These all sound interesting to me, Andy. I want to try this one, dude. Like, it sounds cool.
Really good. It, like I said, not so much in the interactive. So
not an 18xx. It's more okay.
It's more of a economic efficiency Euro.
Okay,
think of it like that.
Well, what you said is the right thing to perk my ears up, because I know that like if an economic Euro that's more of like a Euro game is enough to please you, usually that means it's got something special in it for me as well.
Oh, like I said, yeah, heavy planning game though. Like you can't just like, oh, I'll take these and then figure out what to do with it later. It's very much like, this is my end goal. This is the step to get there. This is the step to get there. This is the step to get there. And oh God, he just took the thing that I needed for the step to get there.
So
how do I make
he took step 2. Now we have to do steps 2 through 15 again.
Right. Yeah. Kind of along those lines. All while trying to not go bankrupt.
Of course.
So anyway, the last one to bring up, I don't know. I don't think this is for sale, but maybe demo. And I've been just keeping an eye on it for, God, if it's not 6 months, almost a year now. But the game is Brutus. So it's based on some kind of Roman theme like this, but it's from Albin VR. So tramway, small city guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He describes this, I think once I heard him say, this is going to be the meanest game he's ever made. Like this, it's supposed to be just vicious.
Brutus the game is to racketeer the commerces, to rob the residences, and to hire new thugs in the industries.
Yep. Like he said,
so you're basically like the criminals in Small City.
Yeah, it's very much like he said it's going to be the meanest game he's made yet. And thinking about just like the god awful things you could do to train tramways to people.
I feel like he's a math guy. He's like a math professor. He's really into math. But it sounds like this is like sort of him maybe approaching it from his creative side, and because it's the game is going to be shipped with a book. Or it says a book should be included in the box, a hard-boiled novel that deals with the story of the same 6 emperors, which takes place after the story of the board game. Wow.
Yeah. No, it should be like, I don't know. When he said it's like the meanest game I've ever designed, I'm like, tramways felt like a kick to the privates on many occasions. Now you have me interested.
Oh, yeah. You're taking the void card. Oh, no.
No, but the best game of that I ever played was still the one where Trent and I played it at Essen with a guy from the Mile High Game Guys podcast.
HeavyCon, right? HeavyCon.
Yeah, and we were just all sitting there like, this is awful. Oh, God, I can't afford anything like it. So if it can, like, up the ante on that, yeah, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, nice. So I'm interested to see this. I was blown away. It says the playtime is 20 to 60 minutes. How do you get this game at 20? There's probably a way for you to fail, and I wonder, is there player elimination? There's not enough out about it yet, but
yeah. No, I don't know. I'm just interested because, like, the things he's made kind of like they're a little interactive, but it's more like what do I do for me that also screws you over kind of interaction. Like to him to go like, no, I'm just gonna go pure mean. I'm like, I at least want to see what you do with that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Next up for me, Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So you're mixing together Between Two Cities, which is my go-to drafting game to teach players either that or Sushi Go Party. Like those are my two. I love both of those games equally for different reasons. And this one's going to mix together Between Two Cities with Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which was Castle of Mad King Ludwig, whatever, is a really great, like the way that they use the different rooms and the spatially building the puzzle and making player into the master architect. To me, like you really do feel like you're creating this cool design floor plan. I wanted there to be a little bit more from the rooms than really the game offered. But then when I played the expansions, I was like, actually, maybe I like it just at that. So maybe this is going to keep that simplicity of both of those games. And moving on now to Stronghold Games, which is coming out with Forum Trajanum. I don't even know how you say Trajanum, Forum Trajanum. You know, the
Trajan would be the actual name of the dude, but
so Forum Trajanum would be the word for Trajan's Forum, I would think. You know, that like the is essentially the caste of Latin. But here's the thing, guys. I think my theory on why Castles of Burgundy is Stefan Feld's most successful game is that it is the one of his games where from the very beginning, you're able to even play the game by making a choice that sets you on a different trajectory than every other player based on that mat that you play with. I think it's all about that mat being different. The gameplay works, but that mat at the beginning makes you interested in approaching a new game every time. Forum Trajanum, however you say it, is the first of Stefan Feld's games that I have ever seen with variable player powers listed under its mechanism. So what do you think about that?
We'll see.
Trent, does that make you at all interested? I mean, it's also one of his heavy. Okay. All right. Next, also Future Opia, which we've talked about before, but it is coming out available for sale there. I'm excited to see what the reception is of that one. A couple of sort of reprints. The same company that put out the recent Mexica is putting out Cusco. So kind of an exploration of the Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling. We're seeing a reprint that has really beautiful looking artwork. That's out of Super Meeple. And then there is a Magic the Gathering board game coming out. Trent, have you heard anything about this Heroes of Dominaria?
They've made a bunch of Magic board games. The only one I ever felt had any promise was Arena of the Planeswalkers, and then they utterly didn't support it in any way.
Okay.
Yeah, so, that felt like a giant screw you to the people who thought Heroescape was making a comeback.
Yeah, it's too bad. Because I know that you like that one, playing that one with your son.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it really, really, really badly needed a lot more cards, and they never brought them out.
And they just dropped it.
Yep.
So maybe don't even pay attention to this one then. So you have every right to do that. And I'm going to finish it, Trent, here. This is going to actually segue us into our hype because you had this one listed. It happens to be the last one on my just because What's Your Game is a publisher who's starting with W, goes to the bottom of the list. You wanted to hype up this game. So let's go into our hype section, which is going to be basically just like another a final last word on Essen 2018 and what we're looking forward to. The last thing is a small expansion that I'll let Trent tell you about.
I didn't really know if this would qualify as an Essen game. It's Nippon Karaitsu. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's just a little mini expansion for Nippon, which adds 12 new factories to the game, 2 of each of the 6 colors. And you just add them in and include them in the layout, and then it just gives you more options. One of the things I enjoy about Nippon is the factories you select shape a lot of what your strategy is. So this opens up a lot of new pathways. I'm really looking forward to it. Nippon, as I said on Twitter, is probably my favorite game they've ever published.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They have really good games, though. I mean, like the more that I think about the other ones, I'm like, yeah, it's not as good as Nippon, but that's more that Nippon is great and not that these games are lesser games. It's just that Nippon is just fantastic to me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Nippon is great.
I think Nippon is an excellent game. I mean, I do really like the other games, but, I'm excited for the same reasons you mentioned, Trent. What's Your Game really does not put out big box expansions to their games. Instead, we get these little things that still, though, sounds like it will add exponentially large amounts.
They did like the same thing to Madeira, right? Yeah, they had the 2 little mini expansion promos.
Ambassadors, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's usually how they roll. So, and we're going to use that one to roll our way off the airways tonight. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I'm Joe Sallin. I've been joined by Trent Ham, by Andrew Dennison. Thanking you all for participating in this wonderful hobby. Anybody who gets to go to Essen, I'm super jealous. Hopefully, someday, maybe Trent will be there next year. Maybe one of those days, me or Andy will be able to make it. Who knows? Not in the foreseeable future, but man, you guys have a lot of great games to be looking forward to released at Essen from my perspective, and even ones that I can get Andy to get behind. Now that tells me that there's some good stuff going on at Essen. So, and when Splatter is behind anything, Andy's going to be paying attention. Same way with the Sierra Madre games. There's a lot you're going to find there. Some of it specifically the Essen bread and butter. Some of it, because it's the game convention that's in that region.
I'm sure there's all kinds of weird, quirky things and small tables and back alleys around there somewhere.
Yes, probably. When you say back alleys,
well, little.
Andy's hanging out in the back alleys at Essen.
Hey, do you want to see this game? It's all cut components.
Andy, that's an opium den. Stop it.
Oh, look, they're selling in Infamous Traffic. How
appropriate. Nice. Well, also thanks so much to our chat here. This chat has been amazing for me to participate and read when I couldn't participate. And after I got done, I was able to say some things, but you guys have been saying some really interesting things to comments, to what we've been saying this episode. So don't forget that we do live recordings on Thursday nights. Usually they're on Thursday nights here. So usually 9 p.m. CST. Come join us when we record The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. You might hear your name said. So thank you very much to everybody who's been there. It's been great hearing from you all. Lots of people at different places. Rakissis, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think this is first time listening into our live recording. So thanks for being here. To you and to everybody else, have a great week of gaming, and catch us next week on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.